What does it take to make money from painting Warhammer?
If someone tells you, the average person, that they're a chef, they don't instantly think like, oh, they get to do what they love for their job. Ooh, like, that doesn't exist.
You've got to juggle so many spinning plates and so much stuff while still delivering the painting of it.
No matter how much you love something, it's a job. If it's work, it's work.
That was one of the hardest things. Like, your time management needs to be like crazy good.
I don't necessarily always want to put money on my hobby or art.
One of the biggest things as a painter that I wish I'd known sooner is to...
Hello everyone, and welcome to Paint Perspective episode 89. In this episode, we're going to talk about what it really takes to make money painting Warhammer, whether or not you should make the hobby your job, and we'll of course be doing our regular segments like hobby hacks. But first, do you have any hobby updates?
I have some hobby musings. I've been musing more.
What, the
Musing?
band?
Yeah,
The band?
just mute. No, definitely not. That's a hot take. I hate Muse.
That's
The
a
bands.
pretty cold take in this room, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Okay.
In
okay,
this
good,
room, yeah.
good. Normally people are like, oh, but you know, and then they name one of the songs.
I think there's
like
maybe
that.
one or two early songs that I really liked, but other than that,
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm also throwing it in the ring. Arctic Monkeys.
yeah, not
Same camp.
not a
Same
fan.
camp.
They're not even the same.
Same camp.
This is what people are here for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been. Yeah, I wouldn't say as much in the way of hobby updates.
Have you been listening to the last couple of weeks of episodes in your absence?
I'm a little bit late.
Okay.
I'm a little bit behind. But yeah, I've listened to.
Give a man a chance. You've been ill.
Yeah, I've been ill. I've been that. ain't
Hobby
the only
musing.
reason.
You know?
Yeah, I've been ill. I've been musing more. Yeah, I just had a lot going on, to be honest. So haven't had much in the way of hobby time.
Well, in that case, I'll fill you in, Joe. Because
You got competition.
you got competition, not from me
Or me.
Yeah.
or James.
Well, I know that. Yeah.
Paul,
Yeah.
coming out of nowhere, might be about to overtake us
He's doing.
both.
He's done the submarine. He's done the submarine. He
We've
started
said
off,
this.
He died, he's
We've said
taken a
this
deep dive.
multiple times that if Paul was in the competition, then he would win.
Well, unbeknownst to us, Paul's not in the competition and he's still going to win.
Well, I mean that is what it is. That is what we literally said it from the start.
Yeah.
If Paul entering the competition is Paul winning the competition, because there's no way I paint quick enough to beat him. You definitely don't paint quick enough to beat him. So
What have you been musing over?
Well, I've got yesterday basically was my first actual just like
Muse.
day of painting. So that was actual hobbying.
Oh, okay. You've been
Because
hobbying
you
that.
can muse while you're doing other stuff.
Right.
So I've been thinking about painting a lot.
You know that thinking doesn't actually paint the
No.
model. Cool.
But you know, it's you talk about pillars of Warhammer, and I think pillars of
You think
one
you
of the
think
pillars.
musing's going to be the
Musing,
secret
yeah.
pillar.
Yeah. One of the pillars.
So
is
we
musing.
got the actual painting.
Yeah.
You've got the law,
Practical.
the
Yeah.
gaming,
Yeah.
musing,
Yeah.
and collecting.
Collecting. Yeah. They're the five. Everyone says that.
Everyone knows. It's like Buddy the Elves, you know, the the core food groups.
any excuse to mention Elf.
I know.
Bloody loves
No.
Elf, didn't you?
Loves it.
I've done that just for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So yesterday was the first time I actually managed to sit down and do some painting and stuff for a while. I haven't gamed or anything either. Like we had a
He's pro gamer is retired.
we had a Warhammer World trip planned. The last one was cancelled because I was ill.
Mhm.
This one cancelled because not only I was ill, which I was going to push through. I was not going to let it get cancelled again because I was ill. But also my car broke down. Had that in the last few weeks. Quite an expensive thing to happen. So probably not the best timing to then go to Warhammer World, if I'm honest. So I had that.
Just have a muse round there. Don't have to buy anything.
Yeah.
Just have a muse.
So
Sorry, guys, I can't make it. I've got such a busy day of musing.
Yeah. Hey, it's exhausting. When you do don't knock it till you try it.
Thank God this is called paint perspective and not paint practicality.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So, but yeah, I managed to sit down yesterday. Have managed to tweak a couple of things on how, after musing on it, tweaking a couple of things on how I'm going to approach the army. I went a bit dark, went a bit too bright, I think, initially on my first like silver test. I'm doing Guardians of the Covenant for any listeners who haven't been checking in. You gave me the advice of going like brighter than I need to, and I think I went too far with it, and I ended up with these like chrome models, which I don't want.
Are you doing the oils?
So the whole point of yesterday's like few hours of painting was, I don't know whether everyone's like this or not, but like I've got a bunch of like half done test models where I was trying all this different stuff that I spoke about before. I was trying the different silvers, I was trying the different like whatever. As soon as I end up leaving it like a few weeks without doing like touching the same model, I get this thing of like, I can't do it. Like I need to be on the spin with one single model.
Momentum.
Yeah. I need to be on the spin. So whenever I have a bit of a break, I then have to get back into it, I have to have a clean slate.
Right.
So yesterday I built, primed and got the new silver on a Terminator, and I'm like, this is my get back in the swing of the army. Then I'll revisit the mishmash of reject test models. Yeah.
They're musing.
They'll be off to the side musing for a little bit. So I need to double check that musing isn't like a Gen Z slang for stuff, or like Gen Alpha slang.
Gen Alpha slang, I'm not.
This is what I mean. They get you off guard.
I was the young generation, and now there's younger people than me swooping in, and I feel
welcome to my world.
But the Gen Alpha,
this is what it's like getting old. All right,
but I feel like at least our slang and then the Gen Z slang kind of made sense.
Kind of.
The Gen Alpha stuff, they pull any word from anywhere and it means something completely different. So I will have to double check that musing isn't now something that they've got with.
It's going to be a very Sigma army.
Has anyone done anything? Age of Sigma. Is that anything?
I don't know. They must think that. They must be like, what's that game? Age of Sigma. That sounds great. I want to get into that.
I predict that Age of Sigma is going to be very popular with Gen Alpha once they get to realize it. Anyway, so where was I? Oh yeah, so basically, and all of that was to set up to try your oils recommendation this evening. So I'm going to be doing that this evening, and I will come back to you next
there
time.
Might be an image on screen now.
There might be. There might
not.
There might not be. I'm not doing a James and going, it definitely will be.
Hey, I delivered photos for last episode, thank you.
But yeah, there might be. I've got all the equipment, everything you sent me out to buy. So yeah. So yeah, a lot of that. Also, there is a particular update to the army that I don't want to reveal yet.
Oh, okay. Keeping it secret. Keep it on brand. Keep it on brand. Dark Angel secrets.
In a few episodes, I think we were discussing this morning that
the thing.
Yeah. We'll do an episode revealing the thing.
You
Okay.
do know about
the thing. You just don't know that I'm now calling it the thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
So you do know about it.
Okay. For you, it's just it. For us, it's the thing.
Yeah. And that has potentially changed a little bit on how I'm going to approach.
You ever painting this army? You spent so much time musing and planning and test models.
I'm just saying.
The audience done at this rate.
Once
I thought I was so worried when you said you was doing metallics. I was like, oh no, it's over. He's going to paint them so fast. I didn't know you'd spend 3 months considering how
I think I've got more exemplars painted than you've got.
Definitely, yeah. I haven't got a finished model yet.
Yeah.
I haven't got a finished.
The amount of heat I get for being slow on painting, and this guy comes in.
I'm actually pretty quick. I'm not going to lie. I've just realised compared to you two, I'm actually pretty quick.
Whoa! I paint more than both of you. It's just not my stuff.
I think it's more.
No, I don't think so.
It says more on you than it does on me. Like even with this, I haven't even got a full model yet. Even then, you can do a poll now. Everyone would still think I'm going to paint it.
You might not have been on the episode. I painted the Blood Angel.
Oh, what did you do?
Yeah.
For God's sake.
But I was like, hang on a sec. I've got a few exemplars done. I've got a few Mordians done. I've got a few.
No, you wimped out of this race. You can't be coming in here now.
I'm not coming back in. I'm not coming back in.
He's part of his goal for this year was to do the Mordians again.
Yeah.
So it is. He's back.
How's that going, James?
He's back in.
I've got 5 painted.
He's back in actually.
All right. Just when I thought he was out.
Can you run the priests with Mordians?
Yeah, you can.
Count? There you go. He's done all the priests.
I never need a priest again. I've got like 10.
Yeah, I don't know.
Cheers, Joe. Cheers for the hookup. Yeah,
Yeah.
why? Yeah, so technically, I've got 16 Mordians painted.
Yeah, there you go.
If you include 10 priests.
Um,
Cheers, Joe.
So yeah, don't know what you want from me. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, yeah, I mean, I don't paint that much, do I? So it's always going to be what I'm gaining in the scheme being easy. I'm only losing in the amount of time I actually spend painting anyway. So it should actually be pretty neck and neck, and you're winning so far. But
good to hear it come from your mouth. Yeah.
So far, you are winning. Out of us two, obviously Paul's beat us both, but out of us two, you're winning. Actually, technically, probably James, as we've just discovered.
No, James omitted himself.
Yeah, I omitted myself.
Everything he says,
he tagged himself back in.
I tagged. I like to be a bit, well, you know, I'm in the competition. I'm not.
Yeah,
so.
I would argue that procrastinating and not painting your army is a very real part of the hobby.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing that to the table.
The musing pillar.
Yeah, exactly.
James, have you been musing much this weekend?
No, I've been painting. So yeah.
So you're putting in the hours, Joe. Putting in the work.
Yeah. Tell them what happened.
Yeah, I know.
Tell them what you spent your time doing.
So I had.
Have you heard this?
Oh, I've heard this.
Yeah, I've heard this. Yeah. So I like to have painting get-togethers. Tom comes over. My friend Luke, who I went to school with. Tom went to school with. Joined by another one of my mates as well that came over. Need some help with the airbrush. I was like, yeah, sure. He's just airbrushing some gold onto some sandguard. And I was like, oh, of course, yeah, I'll have it. He was having a bit of trouble with the gold that he was using. So I just helped him with that.
You were like, oh, I've got this one from 1993. I'm sure it'll be perfect.
It went on like a dream.
I'm sure it did. Plenty of life left in it.
Yeah.
As always.
Best 11p he ever spent.
Yeah, I might have potentially given a few models a bit of a subtle glitter.
Yeah, a bit of an overspray.
I think that they were off to one side. Like I thought, far enough away. Like they were like well off to my right.
So hang on. So you're spraying some gold models for your friend.
Was you using a spray booth?
No.
You were just at the table.
But it was really tiny airbrush usage. It wasn't a lot. It was literally to cover a couple of little things. So I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll just do it. We were all at the dining table, and I might have airbrushed. As I was airbrushing the sandguard, the particles of gold fleck were diffusing through the air a little bit, and some of them might have landed on Lycus a little bit. So I had to repaint a bit of the head. But yeah, it was fine. I repainted it last night. I put the hours in.
Was it only the head?
It was only the head. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I've done this before, unintentionally.
Yeah.
Do you know what I've done? I've had a model in sub assemblies. Maybe I'm going to spray each sub-assembly a different color. One of them might be metallic. And then, silly me, I put it down in the spray booth off to the side or something.
Yeah, honestly, she was like way off to the right. I'm not here in front of me.
That's why you use a spray booth, isn't it?
I know. Yeah, it was only a tiny little bit of airbrush.
If only there was a product to solve this problem.
Yeah. It was just stupid. But anyway, I fixed it, so it's all good. But
if you're in a situation like that, you don't have the spray booth set up or something. You're doing a little quick one.
Wrap it in cling film. That's my hobby hack.
There is that. But then I was going to say that you've got your Tupperware.
I've got plenty of Tupperware.
You got your Tupperware for your wet palette, obviously.
Put the bowl over the top.
Well, the bowl
as a shroud,
as like not to cover the existing models, but to spray within as like if you've got a big one like what we use for the wet palettes. That used to be my spray booth. Was just with like loads of blitz in it, just to like have somewhere to spray.
I presume now that you've got a spray booth, you realise how insane that is.
Well, no, it's not insane because I literally didn't have anywhere else to spray. It's not as insane as just spray it and out in it. What am I going to... I wasn't doing it for safety reasons. I was doing it for like just catch the paint.
Okay,
like don't get paint everywhere.
Yeah. It was a tiny little bit. I fixed it. I've moved on. And I started painting the base for the Night Lord because the Night Lord's come on quite a long way. So the base of Night Lord, I've been doing a lava kind of like.
Is that what that was?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So I just had fun.
I thought that Night Lord was stuck to that base.
Nope, it comes off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's pinned, so it can be removable.
Yep. Touche.
So what you can do, you can put. Sometimes you can put pins. If you drill a little hole, hobby hack for you. You drill a little hole in the feet. You put a little pin in there, and then you drill another hole, corresponding hole in the base, and then you don't have to actually glue it down. You can like remove it.
That's a good idea. That.
Yeah.
Is that like a sort of temporary sub-assembly.
Sort of, yeah.
You
yeah,
never thought of that.
No,
before,
it's a good idea.
Yeah,
That's
so
good.
You should shorten that like TSA or something.
if you want to cut that out for the hobby hack at the end, then feel free. Apparently I said I was going to do loads of hobby hacks, so there's a hobby hack for you.
Well, yeah. So I started painting. I was playing. I was doing the miniature version of the floor is lava. That's basically what I was doing. I was painting the base.
The most convoluted way to say you were painting a lava base.
Yeah, I literally
The
was.
miniature version
of
the floor is lava.
Yeah. So yeah, I was painting that. So I had a lot of fun doing that last night, and to chill, that was pretty good. But no, that's all I've painted. I'm done. But yeah, I'm juggling those two. I'm using finishing the Night Lord off to push me through finishing Lycus off. It's working. So apart from spraying the head with gold by accident.
Did you get any gold on the Night Lord as well?
On the kneecap? Yes.
Ooh.
I know. I fixed that though. Yeah.
Okay.
Only it's very subtle. Very
Yeah.
subtle. So he's just. Maybe he's been to a wedding and thrown some glitter at him or something. I don't know. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, no, I fixed those two things. So, yeah, so onwards and upwards. I'm over the crest of the hill with both of those things. So, yeah. I'm pretty happy.
What about you? You've been talking a lot. So
he's been doing Gergfest 2025.
No, Gerg is on the back burner.
Oh,
right.
Gerg will be returning.
Yeah.
I'm currently painting because, apparently I don't paint anything.
Yeah.
I do. I'm currently painting a commission, actually. It's a custom service Night Lord that's loyalist.
Yeah, it's like a
and
loyalist
Primaris.
captain. Yeah.
Which is quite cool. So I'm in the midst of that at the moment.
Any challenges in particular you've come up with?
Yeah, the lightning. Hard. Yeah. I wanted to do more real world reference because I've done a lot of lightning on like power swords and stuff before, but it's very much like cartoony.
Yeah.
It looks like lightning, but it's just kind of from my head. And when looking at a lot of like real world lightning references, I realized the difference in like intensity of light. You kind of have these individual channels that sort of smaller branches kind of come across. And I didn't realize the value difference in terms of how bright they are. So normally when I paint lightning before, it would be like all super bright, almost white.
Doesn't need to be, yeah.
But it doesn't really need to be. So I've been trying to do some like sort of softer blues into some brighter blues into almost whites and trying to add like a depth effect to look like some lightning's like maybe further away or less intense,
You want to have a look at Pedros from Forge World. His Night Lords that he done. The lightning on that looks fantastic. It's really good. He's the king of lightning. That's really good.
Yeah.
But,
King of Lightning's a good
King of
title.
Lightning's
It's a great title, isn't it? Yeah, I will call him that. I'm going to change him in my phone book.
Yeah.
Step aside, Zeus.
Yeah. King of Lightning.
Pedro's in town.
No, I've been doing that. It's been good fun. And then I don't think I've done any more Gerg since last spoke about it. And I've got the Blood Angels on my desk. I'm doing another model that I can't talk about.
Yeah.
For something.
Juggling a few then.
Yeah.
Are you with the Blood Angels? Are you still happy? Plodding along as you are. You haven't reached a bit where you're like sick of painting these now.
No, he's doing great.
So you've broken the Sons of Horus barrier now. I feel like.
Yeah.
And you're still enjoying them.
Yeah, for sure.
He's doing great. They're looking fantastic.
I'm not accusing him. I'm asking. I haven't been on for a while.
No, I'm enjoying the issue with the Blood Angels. Has just been like juggling other tasks, I would say.
Yeah.
But I've got basically to repeat myself a little bit from a couple of weeks ago, so apologies. But I've basically got a squad of intercessors that I batched kind of together to a certain point, and then I'm now at the break-off point where I'm doing them individually. So I got them all built together, I got them all primed together, I got them all undercoat together, I got them all base together, base coats on, and then now I'm like, right, one at a time, we're going to go through these. Because I find that painting to that level is quite hard to spread across 5 models, and you could spend like 10 hours and they look exactly the same when it's spread across 5 different models. If you spend 10 hours on just one model, you're chipping away and you're getting a little bit closer.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see some sort of, feel like you're moving the needle.
You're doing good. Yeah, grand.
Nice.
Cool. Before we get into the main topic, a little bit of a PSA. Good news, everyone. The Onyx is back in stock as of this episode. Apologies, it's been out of stock over the last few weeks because you will order so many of them. They've been so popular, we cannot keep them on the shelves, but they are back. So if you check the link in the description, you can find a link to the seed shop, and we've got them on sale over there. They're currently in stock when I'm saying this, unless you're late to the party and you bought them all already. So check the link in the description. They should be back in stock and ready to ship to you. And we're trying our best to keep them in stock, but you're ordering them quicker than we can get them in. We're doing our best. But thank you if you have ordered one, and we hope you're enjoying it. Should we get on to the main topic then?
Mm-hmm.
So, I thought we can tackle this from a few angles. I thought we got the Marvel's dream cast for this episode.
Yeah.
Well, we actually done an episode about this quite a while ago.
Yeah.
Like a long time ago.
Yeah. So, what does it take to make money from painting Warhammer? I thought we could go into this a deep dive, but as a cursory sort of glance, as you all presumably know, Siege Studios is obviously a commission painting studio. Joe, you've been on management side of that. James, founder, obviously, CEO, and myself, formerly / currently on the painting team. So I thought we could hit this from a few different angles. And
Trifecta.
but speak about like why it's cool, the challenges of it, getting into it, how you get into it, how you know you're ready, skills you need, trials and tribulations, that sort of stuff. But I think start at the beginning, I guess. James, do you remember like what your first commission was, or how you went from? Is there a point in time where you can remember where you went from I'm just painting for myself, and it never even like maybe crossed your mind to do it for other people, and then somehow money gets involved and business gets involved?
If you really want the very first one was before Siege was even a little twinkling star in the sky of hopefully the future. Before we even knew that Siege was going to ever exist, I painted some Iron Warriors for a friend in sixth form in return for like, I think it's like 50 quid back in sixth form. So that was my very, very first.
That'd have been good money in the 70s.
In the 70s? In the 70s? I'm only 38.
What's the inflation on that?
Yeah, only
Bank of
38.
England, let me pull it up.
I'm only 38. Thank you very much. I wasn't even born. I mean, if I can paint models and not even be born, then God, yeah.
Sorry, that was a layup. That
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'll back that one away. The first one was when I was in sixth form, a squad of Iron Warriors.
So this was just a friend. This wasn't, because I know there was obviously we have an episode on like the history of Siege. I don't want to rehash necessarily all of that, but there was a stage prior to Siege starting where you were approached by like a Facebook group.
Yeah, so I was approached.
So this wasn't that. This
no,
was
it wasn't
like
that. This was sixth
friend.
form. Yeah, this was sixth form. So I literally painted some Iron Warriors for my friend in sixth form. I think I got like 50 quid for it. So, and that was like the first time I ever got paid for doing models for somebody, which is cool. But more Siege orientated. Yeah, like before Siege started, I came back from music, got stuff on YouTube, and then got approached by a couple of people saying, yeah, we do commission painting, we've got this thing, you interested in doing it? So I think it was Black Templars was what I painted, and I learned a lot from just the way that
was a follow-up one, and then the first one was Iron Warriors.
My first one was Iron Warriors when I was in sixth form, and then that was my first dip of the toe into the pond of commission painting all those years later. And then back then, when I painted those models, Iron Warriors, for my friend in sixth form, it wasn't really like I didn't really think of it as like
a business transaction.
How did that come up? Did he ask you?
He was going. I think he was going away. Like he was going away on holiday, and we were going to play a game. And I said, "Oh, I'll paint them for you." And he was like, "Oh, I'll give you some money for it." I was like, "Yeah, okay." And that was literally it.
So he was going to do it for free.
Yeah. I was.
It's
good
funny.
friend. He offered you money. Yeah.
It's funny because that is like actually quite a successful. Obviously, you done it without realizing or even thinking, but that's quite a successful kind of test of concept when you want to start a business in general in anything. Is you'll always hear kind of ask a few friends if you can do the most basic version of that thing for them for money, and then you've got your first transaction under your belt. You've proved that someone will pay you to do it, kind of thing. And that you've done that like by accident almost, or just
Was commission painting really a thing back then as well? Because now I think it's
in the 70s.
Definitely not the 70s.
No, I was saying like I think now it's a really common thing that's thrown around.
I think so.
But now that the industry's bigger and it's bigger in media and whatnot. But
back then, I mean, sixth form. Oh God, I'm gonna have to think when this was. I think it was like
early aughts,
mid 2000s,
2003, 2004, something like that. I think it was. So I went to secondary school in '97. So 5 years later, 6 years later. Yeah, so 2002, 2003. Yeah. So I don't think it was like commission painting back then. Like the industry wasn't really. I mean, the earliest commission painting that I knew that I was aware of was 2012 or 13.
So like the internet's like more.
Yeah,
we kind of slightly different thing.
When
obviously.
did YouTube start?
Well, YouTube actually
05.
started in 2005, but
Yeah.
it wasn't used
in that way.
in anything other than really like uploading sort of webcam.
I don't think YouTube became
for a while.
even close to resembling what it is now until like maybe 08.
Yeah, maybe.
7.
Even after that, like it was a whole different era.
Yeah.
We have the episode with Dave from Mini Wargaming where we talk about like obviously wargaming on YouTube and stuff like that. And I think in general, like YouTube stuff for wargaming, I can't remember what he said, but I don't think he even noticed any until like the late 2000s.
Yeah,
they were obviously really early. But like I think it's interesting because commission painting as a term, I imagine the way that it's gone, and I wasn't obviously in the hobby or those circles in the
at that time.
Or well, actually, I was just starting to find out what Warhammer was, but I was also like 10, so I didn't know what commission painting was or the idea of that. But I imagine that there has always been friends painting stuff for each other.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
I'll chuck you a few quid to paint that for me or whatever. The one friend in the group that is actually the good painter and like, oh, can you do this? I imagine that has happened since the start of this thing as a whole.
Yeah, definitely.
But the idea of it being a profession,
the
or
idea
a business,
of the steps that it takes for then getting a stranger to do it, I think that came a lot later.
Yeah, I think around about 2010, 2011, kind of like that was more.
It was more spoken
about around that time, but yeah. So I'd done those Black Templars and obviously learnt a lot in the sense of like, just like, I guess I don't know. Like my day-to-day in recruitment was like I was always a certain way in recruitment, and like then I done that one thing, and then I was like, right, well, like I can overlay all the stuff I do in recruitment with this, and then I could do that as a service, and that's kind of like where I then went down the avenue of Siege and everything like that. So yeah, but I think commission painting, like it only really had prevalence in that nature probably around about 2011, 2012, something like that. I think like that you're quite right what you said about people painting for friends and things like that. But I think that it became more kind of like of a commercial thing around about that time. And I think YouTube has got YouTube and Instagram.
Big part of that.
YouTube and Instagram is hugely part of it. Like hugely part of it, definitely.
It's funny for me because even I got into the hobby, I think 2019-ish. And even then at the time, from like very early doors of being a beginner, I was very much aware of the fact that it was a thing people did professionally and that there were services and so on. I never really considered it, especially early on when it was just a hobby for me. I'd never even considered the idea of that. I mean, I was working elsewhere anyway. And obviously it was, definitely just starting, and it wasn't even on my radar. But I remember very distinctly the first commission I got, because I've said this story before, but because I didn't have a lot of money then, my hobby budget was very, very small, and I only really got any fun out of painting the models. So once I'd painted the model, it was no longer of use to me, really.
It served its purpose.
Exactly. So, and I wasn't really bothered about displaying them or anything. So once I'd finished painting them, I'd try and sell them on. And I worked out, once I got to a certain level of painting, and this kind of encouraged me to get a little bit better as well, was going on eBay, you'd see that stuff that was poorly painted is worth less than just the model on its own. But stuff that's well painted is worth more money.
Yeah.
So I'd worked out that, okay, well, if I buy the model for 20 quid or whatever it was then, if I could paint it and sell it for more than that, then I've made the money back on the model. I've basically got to paint it for free.
Yeah.
And that was how I worked out. But after a while of doing that, my painting was just getting better anyway, as it would. And I was selling them through eBay, and someone direct messaged me and was like, I think they bought some models that I'd painted, and they were like, oh, these are really good. Could you paint me some of these? And I was like, oh, they actually want me to paint like stuff that they want.
I'm actually so glad you mentioned eBay, because I think that's part of the trifecta of commission painting that I totally didn't comment on earlier in the episode or in this chat. eBay as well was very prevalent, like people selling stuff on eBay.
That's a good point. Yeah,
it really was. I think eBay, Instagram, and YouTube were the three kind of like areas that I discovered very early on that you'd find more as a transactional commission.
Yeah, I think
kind of thing.
Probably because of what you just explained. So I think before again, I'm speculating here because I wasn't like there for it, but like before the jump was made to just knowingly, oh, I can find a stranger on the internet and get them to paint my models for me.
Yeah.
Before that thought was a common thing, I suppose predating that was, going on eBay and finding actual painted models.
Yeah.
And then it's like the step before, like you say, that probably led into more inquiries of like, can you paint this for me? It was probably a lot of people's first, can someone else paint this for me? Because they'd bought something that person had painted already, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see now, especially in recent years, sort of post-COVID and all that, because we've all said the industry's gone absolutely massive kind of since then. But it's interesting now, we chat to a lot of like beginners on like classes and on the Discord and stuff. And it's funny now seeing people who are like, oh, I've been in the hobby for like 2 months and I'm really enjoying painting. And I think I want to make this like my job. It's like people are going
to even have that thought straight away.
I think it's why a lot of people like the idea of getting into it as well. Because they go, oh, I quite enjoy painting. Oh, I can make this a job or a career.
Yeah.
So you're seeing it really from its infancy now in the hobby.
I'm really glad that's happening though. I mean, I've always said that my thoughts on commission painting are they're as black and white as a newspaper. Like I literally, I see it as a trade and always have done, and I've always thought of it that way. Even in the early days of Siege, like when I first started doing it, like I've always thought of it as that. And yeah, like I think that it's good now that it's getting the prevalence of that being possible, if that makes sense. And I think that the last decade or so has really helped with that hugely. And pandemic as well. I think pandemic, as bad as that sounds, I don't want to say it, but I think that's also been really helpful.
I think one of the things, not to like fully for like Siege to take credit for a lot of stuff or whatever, but as someone who wasn't there at the beginning of Siege and then I joined in 2019, one of the things that I really enjoyed the prospect of when I was going to join was the thought of like taking this. Number one, I liked the fact that I would then have a job that people kind of, there's a follow-up question. Whenever someone asks you what your job is, there's always a follow-up question. And I quite liked that.
What?
Like I quite liked that. Like I quite liked, so because it was at that point, I quite liked the idea of like, oh, we could be a part of something that like legitimizes this currently like not really understood profession, if that makes sense. And I really enjoyed the fact that like I feel like we have contributed to that over the last few years, but like I also like at the start before that had happened, I really enjoyed the fact that like, oh, this is kind of like untouched in terms of like how seriously it's taken thing. And we could kind of maybe make a little dent in how seriously it's taken, if that makes sense.
Do you think that's similar in a way to how like the idea of being a YouTuber or like an influencer
exact same thing,
was weird and mystical to people 10, 15 years ago?
And now
it's like, what do you do? Oh, I'm a content creator, I'm a YouTuber. And people just know like, okay, yeah, that's a real thing.
Yeah,
it's no longer like you do what?
I think that's part of the reason why I always wanted to do things as professionally as physically possible. And I think that does come from my recruitment background, but like, it really did need it back then, like for it to be a legitimate professional thing, because that wasn't in the industry, being frank. Like I always say it's really weird amalgamation of like painting for money, like painting miniatures for money. You've always have that overlaying stigma of it's a hobby because it's some other people's hobby, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you see a lot of from certain people. You see a lot of pushback on the idea that some people, there's a lot of people that don't even like the fact that other people could.
Oh, you should paint your own models.
Yeah,
but the thing is unfortunately in real life that's not always possible. You know, people have really, really in-depth jobs, or they have like kids, or they have like, you know, loads of circumstances which mean maybe this,
or even like physical disability.
Exactly. Yeah, there's loads of things out there. But like, I would feel terrible for somebody not being able to be involved in the games, or that have the army that they read about in a book or whatever, and not be able to have that thing because of a physical disability. And then like that it's almost it's helpful us being able to do that for people, so that it gives them the thing that they want, you know. Irrelevant of a commission painting business, even a friend painting the models for them, like that completely mitigates the whole oh, well, you should paint your models yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and again, if you like paint, we talked about an episode the other week about like whether you like painting, how to get around the hatred of painting models. You know,
a lot of people just don't like doing it.
Yeah, a lot of people still don't like doing it. So it's again, this nods back completely to what I always say about like trades. Like, I don't really want to install my bathroom. I'm not being funny. Like, I don't want to. You know,
and do you have the skill to do that at the level that you would be happy with?
Like, I'll get a plumber around to do it, or I'll get a carpenter around to do it, or I'll get a blooming electrician to rewire my. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
You know, like there's time and there's also skill. Like, I mean,
I think people would also be surprised at how many commission clients also do paint themselves.
Yeah.
It's not like 100% of people that commission Warhammer don't paint.
No, 100%.
In my experience, it's been actually the majority of them do it as a hobby.
You can tell from the way that they write their spec sheet as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Because like some of them go into full depth on how they paint their own models and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, they are very clearly into painting.
Yeah.
They just also want the
Somebody
experience of, having someone else do a certain model they don't want to do, or they see the quality that they could be purchasing from someone else as a higher quality. A lot of people, I talk to a lot of clients who are literally getting something from us to use as a reference model to get better at painting. And just to have that model.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, there's all sorts of different reasons that people do it.
100%.
Do you think that people, because I spoke about newer people getting into this and sort of kind of pursuing it as a career, not necessarily from day one, but from quite early. Do you think potentially that's a way of people kind of tripping over their own feet a little bit if it doesn't happen organically? Because often we'll hear from people like, how do I know when I'm good enough to be a commission painter, or what the skills? People say like, oh, I don't really feel like I'm there yet. We get that often with applications. People are like, oh, I've thought about applying for Siege, but I don't really think I'm there yet, and that sort of thing. But do you think that if people don't have that natural kind of, I was painting and then someone asked and then I did it for them as a commission and then someone else asked me and it sort of snowballed gradually?
But I always relate that to other things. Like, for example, it's like anything like running, you know. How do I know I'm good enough to run a marathon? Well, I'm not going to go out and
You'll soon find out if you're not.
I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to go out and run a marathon. I'm probably going to go for a run and see how knackered I get. You know?
Do you know what though? Good point comparing it to other stuff, because I've been thinking a little bit on, like I was saying about the like legitimizing of a hobby as a career kind of thing, and then I was sort of thinking about what are the most like socially acceptable, legitimized hobbies that turned into like careers and things like that, if you like. And
do you have any examples of that?
I landed on what I think is a good shout.
He mused on it.
I mused for a while, and I landed on what I think is a good shout.
Yeah,
cooking.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is very good.
That's a very good one.
I think you're bang on with
cooking. Is very widely accepted as a hobby, an interest, something someone can be into, do in their spare time. But it's also probably the most televised, like documented, high profile hobby in the world, right? Because
that's a great point. Yeah.
Also people can be millionaires off of it, and also there's such a broad thing, and how professional you can take it and stuff like that.
Yeah,
well, I've been watching Great British Menu.
Okay.
And that is something I often talk about with us, and why people potentially like our podcast is that we talk about painting in a very serious way. And sometimes that rubs people the wrong way, but sometimes that's exactly what people are looking for.
Yeah.
Like they want, this thing that I feel really passionate about, these people are actually treating it seriously.
No, we are.
And that, not that we don't have a laugh as well, but like they're treating it seriously. And that's, and when you go to something like Great British Menu, which is a TV show, it's painting competition as much
cooking
as
competition.
Yeah,
He loves
they're the
saying
same.
that
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying they're the same. It's a cooking competition.
Bit of nun oil in that,
but the whole thing is so like professional, and it's
serious.
All over the top. It's all building up to this huge banquet for like all the blah 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 blah. It's about finding the best chefs in the country and stuff like that. So I was like, that's like the pinnacle of
that's their golden
how
demon.
Serious they're taking it. Yeah. But then you do also have like someone in the kitchen who just takes a bit of pride in their cooking and stuff like that. So it's like, and
kind of everything in between as well. I think that's quite similar to the commission painting in that there's loads of people who, I do baking as a hobby, but I cook for brownies for the kids at the weekend. That steps up to, oh, these are actually quite good. You should do like a bake sale on the weekend.
Yeah.
To all of a sudden you've got this like side hustle thing where you go to a market stall twice a week
and then
all of a sudden you're a professional baker and you have
But I also think because it's one of the oldest activities that humans have done, I guess, it's so obviously so much further along where there is zero resentment, like you were saying, to someone who, like, for example, the YouTuber thing.
Yeah.
If someone's a YouTuber for their career, there's still a little bit from like the average person, a bit of a like, oh, like what's that about? Like, like this almost jealousy of getting to do what they love for their hobby. But like for a chef, there's this like inbuilt understanding with everyone that like, yeah, that is a hobby thing, but that is also a career, and that is also the how difficult it is.
It's got a really broad scope of all different things.
Yeah, so I think there's just this more like, if someone tells you, the average person, that they're a chef, they don't instantly think like, oh, they get to do what they love for their job. Ooh, like it's a bit that doesn't exist.
Yeah, no resentment from the home baker who likes making brownies on the weekend.
Exactly, it's a completely different thing. The differences between it being professional and hobby and everything is already inbuilt because it's such an old industry and stuff.
I do think commission painting is getting that way, though. I do think it's way more acceptable within the industry than maybe it used to be. I think that to the professionalism that Siege and we try and put into it, I think it's definitely way more acceptable now because the industry has come on so much in the last decade and so much since. I mean, I've got to say it, since pandemic, it's come on leagues since.
I think partly, people might not like the way I phrase this, but I think partly that's a quality thing, where maybe if people see commission painting as something they could easily do themselves, they're providing a similar quality for them, there might be a little bit of jealousy. Whereas if it's a studio of some of the top painters in the country, painting to a very, very incredibly high level, people value that more because it's harder to achieve. Therefore, they put a higher price tag on it.
It's so funny though, because that metric is different for literally every individual person. So it's such a funny thing for someone to make a judgment on. Do you get what I mean? Like, because it's like, to some other person, that one that you think looks awful or is the one that you can do, and why are they charging money for that? To some other person, that's that they would love that because it's a step up from what they can do or whatever, or it suits the purpose that they want or something like that. Like,
I would also say that, like, your point of food, it's very similar to that, because as an example, and I do think you've nailed it with the whole cooking and
thank you very much
thing.
I was very proud of that.
I mean it sincerely, that I really do, because the thing is like, if you look at like Michelin star restaurants, you look at the food that comes out from them, it'll be like, and I'm going to say something ludicrous now, but you get the analogy when I say it. There's like about 3 bits of carrot and like a little bit of cress, and there's like a tiny bit of this or whatever on the plate, and it's really pretty and it looks great. But someone will go, well, that doesn't look like a that's not a lot of food. That's not a lot of food, or that doesn't look very good or whatever. But it's like a super high end restaurant that the chef is like. What I'm trying to get at is that, like, I think that the exact same thing within our industry is very prevalent within the scope of cooking. But the real interesting point which you made as well is that, like, you had a conversation with people like, oh, we're going to go out to eat. Everyone's like, yeah, cool, okay. Like, oh, what, we're going to pay someone else to cook?
Well, we're going to pay someone else? No, thank you. I'll cook my own food.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a very similar sort of...
The cooking is part of the fun of the meal.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the real interesting parts of it, is that, like, that is wildly socially acceptable, like within, like, just people in general. Like, yeah, we'll go.
But the reasons you do it is all the same thing. Someone can cook better than you. I want to taste something better than what I can cook. It saves me time or whatever. All this, everything.
It's a nicer experience.
It's a nicer experience. It's less effort for me, but it costs me money. Yeah. It's like the exact same solution to the exact same problem kind of thing, but it's just so much more socially acceptable.
Do you want to get even more from these podcast episodes? Patreon is the place to get exclusive Paint Perspective content every single week, including extended versions of the podcast featuring bonus segments you won't see anywhere else. Plus, as a member, you'll get exclusive Discord access, including monthly hobby hangouts with us, opportunities to ask your questions on upcoming shows, plus all of our podcast content completely ad-free. To learn more, head to the link in this episode's description or go to patreon.com/Siege Studios.
I've seen the industry go from, as I said, Matt and Dave with handy cams basically on a YouTube channel, all the way through now to like super professional, well shot. I mean, look at like battle reports like from TT or from like Play On and people like that, like
full on media production studios.
Like the industry has developed way more commercially over the last decade that I've been involved in it, definitely, like, and I've seen, and I just don't, because I've obviously been
we're sat on a multicam podcast shoot right now.
Yeah, we've got a team of 16 people operating.
You can't see him behind the camera. A little bit film or light on me, Dave.
Yeah. Can we take 5 in a minute and put George back through makeup, please?
Touch this up. It's not working for me. Also, where's my latte?
But because I've come from a commercial background and I've been used to it day in, day out in the industry that I was worked in previously to Siege, like, it's normal for me. And then, like, it's been so weird to try and build a business, or multiple businesses, even like with AO and other stuff, like to build businesses which are like commercial entities in an industry that doesn't take commercial nature as well as other industries.
Yeah, you have to just
it's so
navigate
weird.
it
Like,
differently.
it's so weird, honestly. Like,
I do find it quite similar to, I won't go on too long on this, and we touch on it every now and then anyway, but with, we're obviously very into and came through like hardcore punk music scene.
Yeah.
And that is inherently intended to be underground and not especially commercial or accessible.
Yeah.
You very much like...
You have to go around the back of the alley, do the secret knot.
It finds you.
Secret handshake.
It finds you, and you're either in and you understand it, or you don't.
Yeah.
And at the moment, we're experiencing this big
it's exploding
wave,
again.
this big explosion, thanks to TikTok and things like that, where Knox Loose, for example, we've mentioned many times, are essentially a hardcore band at heart. You could argue they're probably more metal / metalcore band these days, but they came through the hardcore scene, hardcore punk shows in like community centers in America and stuff like that.
Was a Village Goat there?
And they've just been nominated for a Grammy.
Yeah.
So like,
It was on Jimmy Kimmel one.
they're on Jimmy Kimmel. So it's a similar thing where you see the pushback of the commercialization, and I think it's probably more understandable in something like hardcore punk, for example. But I witnessed that the same in Warhammer as I do in hardcore, and it's like, I just think potentially more for Warhammer. I have my own thoughts on the hardcore stuff, but potentially more for Warhammer. I do think it's inherently something that is built to be commercialized, in my opinion. I'm sorry, I don't think anyone's going to particularly enjoy hearing that, but it is a sci-fi franchise. Like, it's since Star Wars, they have been one of the most commercialized, popular things on the planet. So it's like it would happen eventually, I think.
Do you know one of the things that I always find interesting, and I don't mean to say it in like a laughable way, but like, everyone wants more people in it and wants it to grow and be, more prevalent and all this kind of stuff. Like, but the way that happens is through commercialism of the industry, and like,
the fear is that it gets watered down.
No, I agree. I agree.
As long as you have the right people contributing to
correct, 100%.
To the growth,
100%, yeah. Like,
then you're in good stead. The fear is when the commercialization comes from the outside.
Well, totally. Look, the moment the drunk captain takes command of the boat, it goes off course.
Yeah,
and the thing is like,
just like,
he's done it again.
Like, it's just like more like someone, for example, looking over and seeing dollar signs is the problem.
No, totally. Which is, and then when we look at things like, for example, like, sorry to bring him up, because like he comes up in conversations all the time because obviously of all the things that are all over the media and stuff. But
already know he's going to say Henry Cavill.
Cavill as an example, yeah. Okay, just got to say.
I was thinking we haven't mentioned Matt Kennedy in a while.
Shout out, Matt.
Shout out, Matt. Yeah,
I was like, how is he at the bottom of all of this?
Like when you've got people like that have left franchises because of a diversion from narrative or from the books or from whatever a case may be, when you've got someone like that that's involved in it, and like when you have a true, sorry to use a pun that's relevant to him and also what we do, but when you have a custodian of the IP like that, okay, all right, it surely gives the safety net of commercialism of the industry, but with respect. And I think that's
for now, he's the first one though.
That's the harmony.
That is the problem. It is for now,
yeah.
And it is. You only have to look at your, Marvel and I just mentioned Star Wars. You look at Star Wars now, and there's loads of people that aren't happy with how that's gone. So I do understand the apprehension, but
what I think leading on to like the main topic and just steering back onto it, I think one of the things for me that like is interesting is that like commission painting has, like every other thing on earth, has evolved over when you think about it, over a very, very minute time frame. So what is it, 10, 12? We've been around over a decade, so 12 years. Like in the 12 years of Siege, it's gone from maybe 1 or 2 YouTube channels or 1 or 2 businesses that were doing it to now being considered way more of a job, which is good.
Well, I have never been a commission painter, so I can talk about some of the management side of it in a bit. But obviously, we've just covered a whole load of like why the commission painting industry exists and how it can exist and stuff like that. From an actual practical point of view of like what it takes to do it, we've just heard both of your like introductions to it. But once you were in kind of full time, if you like, so James, for you, for example, like let's say Siege has been going a couple of years, you're still painting at this point, but you've got some friends doing it as well or whatever. And then George, like when you came on to Siege and you were like underway with commissions, from both of you, what is the first thing that you noticed that was like, oh, this is different, I didn't consider X, as opposed to painting your own models?
I always say it, like you're painting stuff that you hate.
I was thinking that. I was
painting stuff that you're painting stuff that you hate.
James's first thing he realised, these aren't blood angels.
Yeah.
It's not even so much that it's stuff that you hate.
No, I think that's a bit strong.
It's not stuff I want to paint.
Yeah.
Even if it's stuff I like.
The choice is removed.
I didn't choose the models.
Yeah.
I didn't choose the colours.
Yeah.
I didn't choose
the options.
That project is for someone else, right?
Yeah.
And that's all well and good. And sometimes it's stuff that you love on the flip side.
I was about to say that, yeah.
Your own hobby is your own hobby. Like you're the pilot of that ship, right? You get to choose what you're painting next, when you want to paint it, what order you want to do things. When you start taking those decisions out of it and start operating it, then you start thinking of it and musing over it in the sense of business brain, like, okay, well, this is the most efficient way to do that because I can do that quicker and so on. And you're min-maxing every decision and they've already been made for you. Some of the artistry is kind of removed and it's very much a process.
Feels
thing.
a bit more sterile almost.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, no matter how much you love something, and people don't want to hear this if they would love to be a commission painter, but it's a job.
Yeah.
And you hear people say this all the time. And it's one of those like lessons that you can't learn until you do it. It doesn't matter how many times someone else tells you. But no matter how much you love something, if it's work, it's work.
Yeah.
And it's hard work. And I think that to dovetail that slightly with a bit of a taboo topic is money and pricing, things like that. And I think for a lot of people that do this as a hobby or don't really understand that it's a job and they're not as well informed, you might hear the prices of some of this stuff and think that's crazy, that's ridiculous, that's stupid. But you can very quickly put all this to bed, right? How many hours does it take to paint a Warhammer model? How many hours does it take to paint a Warhammer army? How many hours does it take to complete this thing that you want me to do that I don't want to do? If that's going to take 50, 60, 100, 150, 200 hours, you're buying labor at that point. Yeah. Forget about the models, forget about the talent and skill and equipment and techniques and graft and training that's come before it. Yeah. Even before we get to that point, we've got this benchmark baseline thing to achieve, which is just labor and my time, right? And if you've got to put food on the table, you've got rent to pay, you've got bills to pay, there is obviously a minimum amount of money that you're willing to do anything for, regardless of whether you love it or not. Just any task
that's going to take time.
And you, especially if you don't have another job, if it's a bit of a side hustle, you've got a bit more wiggle room of this sort of stuff, right? But if it's going to be your full-time job.
Just to clarify then, last couple of points. If someone is coming into and they want to be a commission painter, two of the main things so far that we've listed that you've got to be kind of considerate of, you're going to be painting things that you don't like. And that is going to be a big part of it.
And it's hard. And to that point, it's hard work.
Yeah.
You know, it is ultimately, yes, something you enjoy, but working 40 hours a week, sat at a desk, stressed out, planning projects, replying to emails, because people don't see all of the back end of it as well.
Yeah.
Replying to emails, corresponding with clients, doing your taxes, like all of this stuff, the expenses, the cost of materials, all of that stuff does add up when you scale it.
Yeah. A lot of people think that it's just, I'm going to get to paint models and have fun doing it. As much as I said, I started off with, you're going to paint things that you hate. You're also going to get to paint things that you love. But like in exactly what you said, there are so many things behind the actual physical painting of the models. This is why doing it on your own is very difficult, because you've got to juggle so many spinning plates and so much stuff while still delivering the painting of it. And that honestly, for me, when I started Siege, that was one of the hardest things. Like, your time management needs to be like crazy good.
I'd always said that when I was, because I was full-time commission painting on my own before Siege for about a year, and I always said that 50% of my time was spent painting miniatures.
Yeah. So that's part of it. You got to consider that. And then the second part is, I think, actually a very big thing that people aren't necessarily prepared for is that you have to be comfortable working out how to price your stuff, talking about money with people, actually putting a value on this thing that you perceive as your hobby or art and things like that. That is an entire thing on its own.
It's hard.
That is enough reason for someone to not want to do this full time, because I don't necessarily always want to put money on my hobby or art or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
and it's having the confidence to put it at a price that you would actually deem acceptable, and being willing for that person to say no.
Yeah, just having those conversations.
Because a lot of people want to devalue their work to make the sale.
Yeah.
Out of fear of losing the sale.
So being comfortable not.
And I think that's why prices creep down a lot, especially from people. And people don't value themselves enough, and that frustrates me so much. I see so many really, really talented painters not valuing themselves enough. And it's not that people aren't willing to pay it, it's that people are only going to pay what you charge them, right? So if you don't value yourself and you don't believe in yourself and your skills and you don't value your time enough, other people won't. And the only way you get over that is through the confidence and determination to charge what you're worth.
Yeah.
The thing I would say as well is that, and this is something to just tack onto it, which I think is really important, is like, and I always say this about the industry being unregulated, it's like there's no quality assurance, which is one of the things, which is something that I've been super like, almost like with us, it has to be this way, purely because I don't want stuff going out there that isn't to the quality that people are getting, if that makes sense. It's really important. Like, that's
sort of the security that you're getting
exactly
from a company like us.
Exactly. And I'm not trying to turn this into a huge sales thing, but like, what I genuinely mean by this is, like, because I've come from a very regulated industry and what I've done professionally for over a decade before Siege, coming into an industry and not having that level of professionalism and quality assurance, like, I'll flat outly say this, I'm more than happy to say this, if something is not to standard, it does not go to the client. It does not go to the client. We check everything against the specification of the client and also our levels of quality. And if it doesn't hit that level of quality,
by a dedicated quality control
quality assurance team, like, that is the level of care that we put into it because of what we're about as a company. But in our industry, quite frankly, there are every type of different situation is out there, like any other unregulated industry. And that's just something that I would say to anyone who's either a customer or a commission painter, you have to put yourself in the right position in the industry and represent yourself correctly.
So potentially even from like an artist point of view, if obviously when you're painting for us, it's a little bit different because we do all of that. But that is another thing you have to consider, is maintaining those kind of standards yourself.
Yeah,
because
100%.
It's not going to work if everyone you're painting stuff for is getting all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
And you don't want someone coming back and then getting a different product than they did the last time.
Yeah. So there's a lot more. Yeah, there's a lot of like thoughts in terms of that. So I'd say that's three very big things that necessarily, like, if you want to get into commission painting for yourself, you've got to think about that. Necessarily, like, most people might not have thought about.
Do you want to learn how to become a better miniature painter, improve your skills, and have the best looking army on the tabletop? Well, now you can with the Siege Studios Patreon. You'll gain instant access to our catalogue of over 350 easy to follow step-by-step tutorials covering a huge variety of colour schemes, painting styles, and techniques, with everything from beginner-focused foundation tutorials to full character masterclasses. Plus, with the team adding new lessons every single week, you'll never run out of techniques to learn or skills to improve. And if that's not enough, you also get access to our critique clinic, where you can get video feedback from us on your miniatures with advice on how to progress your painting, so you'll always know what to work on next and see improvements as fast as possible. So if you're ready to take the next steps in miniature painting, head to patreon.com/Siege Studios or check the link in this episode's description.
So outside of that, that's a lot more like probably things you would think about if you had already decided you were about to become a commission painter. So from your experience, how do you know that you're necessarily ready to take that step? What do you need to have in place first?
I think for me, it was a little bit different because it happened quite organically and quite slowly. So like I said early on, it was people had started asking me to do commissions and stuff, but I still had a job, and that went on for a year or two. It was just sort of this side thing. Occasionally someone might email me because they'd see my work on Instagram or whatever, ask me to do a project, and I would do it, in the evenings or on the weekends. But after going full time and then later on working for Siege on the painting team for a while, I think one of the things that I had to learn myself that I maybe wasn't ready for going in is learning to be really efficient and consistent with the way that you paint.
Yeah.
So it's not just, I think people go, oh, how do I know when I'm ready? Is it when I know I can paint to this
they
quality?
They think of it
as
a quality thing.
They think of it as an end product and not necessarily how you got there.
Yeah.
So I think it's the way you know if you're ready isn't, can you paint 9th stage edged highlight inside of an eye lens? It's not this like specific technique that you can, it's not, oh, I can paint non-metallic metal now, so I'm ready to go pro. It's not that sort of thing. I think it's can you paint back-to-back batched squads of models of an army and make them all look really uniform and consistent? Can you do that again weeks later? Are you good at organizing your time and being really efficient and thorough in how you paint? Are you capable of, even just building an army and making sure you get all of the mold lines and make sure everything is really, really clean and high quality?
Yeah.
But it's doing that consistently and in a time-effective manner. If the only way that you enjoy painting miniatures is by painting them one at a time and spending 15 hours on one and 12 hours on another, and I got bored, so I'm going to start painting this tank now, and I've half finished it, so now I'm going to go back to the squad. If that's how you enjoy painting, more power to you. I'm glad you enjoy the hobby, but you're probably not ready to be a commission painter, because not only are you then mitigating the amount of money that you can make to pay your rent, but also your client is going to have to wait even longer to get that finished product. So what should have taken 3 weeks might take 6 weeks, might take 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And the other person's not going to be so happy on the end of that if you say, oh, it's going to take me 6 months to do it and it takes you 2 years. Mm-hmm. And throughout that process, say you charged a fixed rate for the job, the longer that goes on, the less money you're making.
Less valuable it is for you, yeah.
Yeah, I got to agree. Like, process is hugely, hugely important. Like, the best commission painters are quick at being consistent, sharp, neat, clean. Like that, they are skills that you should develop as a painter. I think that's when those are the indicators for me, especially when I'm looking for people to join Siege. Being able to demonstrate a wide portfolio of types of models, finished, like more biological, more armored, all those kind of things. Having a variance of size of projects, smaller models, characters, armies, like squads, all those kind of things are really important. But in general, for a skill set, to know when you're ready. Am I super consistent when I batch paint 10 models? Am I really efficient with the way I apply the paint to those 10 models? Those are things which are, for me, key indicators of what makes someone ready to then to do it as a project. And you've got to have, you've got to have a lot of grit to work through the projects that you hate the color scheme. Those cheetah painted Space Marines, I can't stand doing the cheetah dots on the models anymore, but I've got to do them as good as each other. And then I've got some Blood Angels, which I absolutely love, but then don't want to give it back to the client because I love them so much. You've got to have the tolerance from both ends of those spectrums, but ultimately you've got to deliver the same quality and the same consistency. And I think they're the things, they're the key indicators for me.
Grit is such a good word for that. And I think that, I've loved my career as a professional painter and I wouldn't trade it for the world, but there have been some really hard times where I've been, neck deep in a really, really big project that's not going the way I thought it would. And it's due. Yeah. And my bills are due. So I need to finish it. Like, you've got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and get it done, because when you're self-employed or you're employed for another company, like freelance and what have you, like, there is no sick pay. There is no holiday pay. Like, if you don't do it, you're not getting paid. You've got to get it done.
Yeah.
And
it's the same with any freelance industry.
It's no different.
I know plenty of people in creative spaces within music and photography and stuff like that who earn their living freelance, job to job, and it's the same thing with that. You have to consider, I suppose, that the broader issues or broader problems you might come up against of living your life with your career being freelance, as you would with any other freelance career. It's like
100%.
not all the issues aren't necessarily specific to miniature painting or being a commission painter, I suppose.
Or even, I've got to say this as well, or even revenue. The reason why I say that is because like freelance gives you a bit more freedom to make choices about like if you want to go on holiday or go away or have time off, or if it gives you that flexibility as well. So there is that benefit of being freelance as well.
There's definitely benefits to it. I'm just saying that there could be, it is something to think about that potentially someone isn't used to.
No, of course,
and also I would say I've done freelance stuff. I've only ever done freelance stuff like solely as an actual like full-time wage once, and it was only for like 9 months or something. So I never had to have any grand things or plans for it. But I would definitely say that you need to be good with managing your own finances, because you don't know when you don't know necessarily when big payments are going to come in, small payments going to come in. You need to know, when work's going to be good, when work's not going to be good.
Yep.
Definitely look into the broader landscape of being a freelancer full time within any other industry and what people say about it, because they will all positives and negatives. Apply to being a commission painter as a freelancer as well.
Well, this is why from the outset, like in our process, like I try and be as absolutely black and white as possible, because then that way there's no false expectations or there's no kind of, I didn't realise that. I always try and say about like, you have to paint stuff you hate, you have to paint stuff you love. There's going to be a lot of things that you need to be on top of.
To use another music analogy, because that's kind of our bread and butter. I think maybe if you're not a professional, say you was. I'll use an example of myself as a young teenager who was doing music and playing guitar, and I thought if I'm going to be a professional musician, I'm going to be John Mayer. I'm going to be a rock star. And what you don't realize is that a working musician is actually John Smith. He's in size 9 font on the back cover of some video game soundtrack that you've never heard of.
Yeah,
you're not necessarily going to be the best, the flashiest, but you've got to be solid, dependable, can show up anywhere, do any project to a solid degree of quality, and you're not necessarily going to get all the accolades and all the fame and recognition for that. Like I said, you've got like professional painters and people that you see on YouTube and so on that are big flashy names and they're very, very talented painters. You might look up at that and be like, oh, I want to be like that guy and make money from painting. But it's not necessarily like that.
No.
It's, you're going to be sitting there doing your big projects, your batch painting models. They're not necessarily going to be your best work either, because
the level constraint,
the level constraint of doing it under a deadline and under a certain budget, even like people might want to pay more to get higher quality, pay less to get it done faster to a lower quality. You've got to kind of manage that flexibility. So
I would say as well, as like I say, someone on the management team, we have like, we're pushing like 90 freelance artists that we work with currently. So across like 4 different teams or something. So I talk to a lot of people who are doing this for the first time, or we take people on sometimes who haven't done commission painting for themselves before. And what I would say is that the number one reason it potentially ends up not working out is that there were just things that they did not consider. Things that it's never necessarily like a negative conversation, or sometimes there is just factually reasons that being a freelance commission painting artist isn't going to work for you. And I think realizing that is a good thing. Otherwise you'll just stick to it for no reason. And I think one of the biggest things seems to be that people within their own painting time, like you say, you're not used to putting necessarily standards on it. So you're not necessarily always looking at painting to, this is the standard for this thing, this is the standard for this thing. And so I think I would advise, if anyone is looking to start doing it, start thinking about painting in that way, maybe.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter what standards, it doesn't matter what standards you're hitting.
As long as you work to some form of standard.
But practicing working to standard.
Yeah.
Or setting your own standard is probably going to help.
And hitting that across multiple different types of miniatures.
Exactly,
not just I can paint a blood angel to look like this. It's a minimum quality level. Can I hit that on a tank? Can I hit that on Eldari miniatures? Can I hit that on some Age of Sigmar Nurgle. Like
Yeah.
it's a variety of stuff. Or even, everyone loves Warhammer, and Warhammer is kind of like the core of IP of this hobby.
Like
but it's
non-Warhammer
going to be
models.
it's going to be like 3D printed stuff for some board game you've never heard of. It's going to be a mix of things.
Yeah.
And being able to hit that quality when you're out of your comfort zone, because you're relying on those fundamentals. And that's why it's so important to break painting down into these kind of steps and treat everything kind of the same regardless of what the surface you're painting is, so that when you're given a project that you've never seen before, a miniature range that you're not familiar with, and a color scheme that you have no idea about, and an IP that you have no idea about, you can rely on your core fundamental skills as a painter to get those things finished to the same standard as you would something that you do love and you are used to painting.
I think also, like, look, we're in this weird situation where we don't want this to be like an advert for Siege as a commission painting company or anything like that. We did genuinely just want to have a broader conversation about commission painting, but I also don't want to like flat out not acknowledge our stance on it, because then that almost seems like disingenuous that we're trying to hide it. So just to also say on that is, like, I guess, again, feedback from the team, a lot of things that I hear is the benefit of having a office team there as like just someone to check in with. Is this the best way to do this? Am I interpreting this properly? This kind of thing. I do think that does potentially take away an element that you would have to otherwise be worrying about completely solo. Whereas you have us here to guide you on certain things, and a lot of people find that helpful, I would say.
The exact thing that you said is the reason why last year I started the academy.
Yeah, this is exact thing. Like, we obviously get loads of applications for people that want to paint for us anyway.
Yeah.
And I remember exactly the conversation you had with me was that, like, I'm getting so many of these applications where they haven't been painting for that long, or they're like just not good enough because they don't have the right like experience.
Yeah.
There's so many people where like literally all it is you just need a bit of guidance as to how we do things and it would work.
Yeah.
And then that's why that's why I remember you saying about Academy.
It's one of my favorite things. I think that's one of the, like, it touches really nicely to the points you made about that support network, the benefits that come with all the working for the company and all of that. Like, the Academy is there to top and tail though the core skills that somebody has got. It's there to develop them. It's there to give them the support. It's there to give them that guidance of not just painting execution. You could be an amazing painter, but the process could just need a tweak in the right way to make you more efficient, which then ticks the box of like consistency and efficiency.
How many times, like, we hear it all the time from a newer artist potentially, where it's like, oh, you could have done this, or I would have done it this way, and it like opens their mind like instantly, like, I've literally never thought about it that. Like, and it's the final like thing to just tick it over to be like, okay, now you're definitely ready to take a commission on, because you're viewing something slightly different or whatever. And again, like, I don't want it to be a huge advert or whatever, but I just thought it'd be a bit weird to actively try and not mention these things that we've like, that we do. You know what I mean? They are there, and ultimately you're probably watching it. You're either watching this podcast because you're already a listener and you already know about Siege anyway, so I don't really need to push Siege as an advert to you anyway, or you're watching this because you've been looking up that you want to be a commission painter. And some of my genuine unbiased opinion would be to potentially apply to Siege if you want to do that.
Yeah, the link will be in the description of the video for anyone who's interested in the Academy or about any opportunities here at Siege.
Yeah. I would say as well, worst thing that could happen with an application is that it doesn't work out right now. Why not? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're thinking about it and you're serious about it, you might as well build up that barrier of let me just see what happens, kind of thing.
I would say as well, in the broader sense, if you've made it this deep into the episode, leave your comments. If you have any like questions about commission painting or anything like that, please leave some comments down below, and we'll try and get back to as many of you as we can, and maybe just start a bit of a dialogue down there. If you have any like questions specifically around being a commission painter, or if you want us to go into more detail on any of the things we've discussed in this episode, then leave the comments down there, and I'll try and reply to as many as I can personally as well. And I'm sure some of the community would love to get involved and help you out, and maybe we can speak about some of the more taboo subjects that people just don't speak about, or equally like who do you ask about this stuff? Do you know what I mean? Because it's not a common thing to find other people that are doing this. So where better place, I guess, than in the description, than in the comments of this video. On that note then, should we get to the hobby hack for this week?
Yep. Don't
Joe,
look at me.
I'm sure you've got, you said, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you say something about like, I'm going to do like a hobby hack every episode I'm on this year?
I will.
You made some ridiculous comment.
Do you know what you've said this about 6 times since I sat down. The first time I genuinely didn't remember any of it, but it is starting to come back to me now. I might have said that. I don't know.
Well, regardless, you don't have one. So, James.
I don't have one. I've already given one earlier about the pinning.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah,
it wasn't patronising at all.
You're welcome.
I love the way it was directly targeted at George as well.
Yeah, well, he was confused at the mention, so I thought I'd enlighten him.
Okay, it's fine. So I'll cover your back this week, Joe. It's all good. You got to have
It's
some.
not covering my back. It's not on me, the hobby hack.
Okay.
I'm not the professional painter here.
Okay.
If you want any hacks on like writing a good email, let me know.
Right.
Wearing hats.
Yeah.
So I have got one for this week. I don't know if I've spoken about this one before. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't. I don't know. But
I hope not.
I hope not. Yeah, I'm going to chuck it in. So I always use the acronym false expectations appearing real or fear. And I think one of the biggest things as a painter that I wish I'd known sooner is to have an environment or something that would mitigate that fear. And the fear is ruining the model or doing something on the surface of the miniature, which is ultimately detrimental, too thick paint, or it's too watery, or it stains, or it does any of this. One of the biggest tips I could give any painter of any level is to literally get either like a Games Workshop base or a bit of plastic card, a decent sized bit of it. And like if you're trying something new, or if you've got like a paint that you've not used before, or like you're trying to blend something and you want to see if the colors work or any of this kind of stuff, to do it on the base or the bit of plastic card. The two virtues of it. Number one, it's made out of the same material as your miniature. So the paint's going to behave the same way as it would on the miniature. GW bases or bases in general are quite good because they've got a little bit of texture on them. So what you can do is you can sand half of it so it's smooth, and then you can have a little bit of that stippled kind of like ground-esque texture on it. So you can see how paint behaves on a smooth surface and one with a little bit of texture. But it's a really good safety net to allow you to do stuff that maybe you're a little bit unsure of, or that you don't want to do that on that expensive model. Then the base is a really good place to then basically do any testing of like techniques or colors or processes or anything at all whatsoever. It's a really good safety net that will give you ultimately, which is the complete counter to miniature painting fear, which is confidence. It'll give you the confidence to be able to execute stuff and to be able to use stuff knowing how it's going to behave or what it's going to do on the base, not on the miniature. So yeah.
You know what I could have done with that hobby hack with these Night Lords that I was speaking about in the preamble? Because if I'd have done the lightning, I just went Hail Mary. I just sent it. I was like, I'd done this really nice blend on the shin pad. I'd done my 4 stages of edge highlights. I'd spent like hours on this leg already.
Did you learn nothing from what was the January monthly challenge called? Bealtanuary. I was gonna say El January, but that wasn't it, was it?
Go on, did you learn anything?
Did you learn anything? Oh. Just keep it in. When you painted you did freehand on the robes for the
I forgot about that. Yeah,
and you had a similar issue.
Look, right,
so
if you've learned anything about me on this podcast, Joe, so I'm going to continue to make the same mistakes 6 months apart and completely forget about what I'd done the first time.
Yeah.
It's a great advocate there for commission painting.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I was going to say I think we have brought this up before potentially on a hobby hack. And obviously you haven't acknowledged that.
No, I've got to fail and do something the wrong way 30 or 40 times before it finally sinks in that I need to change.
Yeah.
That's fair. Anyway,
that's fair.
The problem with freehand is if it's on like a blended surface, you can't clean it up.
No.
Yeah. If it's on a flat, say I had like a leg panel and it was just painted one flat color. If I mess up some freehand on it, guess what? I can go back in with that one flat color, tidy it up. If you've got like a nice gradient and all sorts of stuff going on, you are stuffed. All right. So I just went
straight in.
It done all right. I made a few mistakes, but you know.
Tidy them up though?
Yeah, I had to sort of
reblend
some bits.
Yeah.
But But if I'd practiced, because what I did learn was it's on multiple armor panels, the lightning. And I had that annoying thing where you do the first one, you go, oh, it's all right. And then you do the second one, it's way better than the first one. You go, right, now I've got an issue because that one looks way better than that one. It's right next to it. So I had to repaint. Yeah. I had to repaint a knee to make it look as good as the leg.
Here's a hobby hack for you.
Learn from your mistakes.
When you're going to do something like that, do the first one round the back. So you should have done the first lightning round the back of it, just in case. And then once you get your move, go to the front, the money shot.
That is...
Obviously, this is a commission, so unfortunately for you, you have to make sure the back, front, upside down, all of it looks great. Yeah. But for the...
And sage advice as that is, he's got a massive cloak on his back, so you can't see the back of him anyway.
Well, that would have been even better. Leave the cloak off and do it.
It's attached. It's sculpted, custom sculpted.
Oh, true, yeah.
Yeah, can't change that.
Yeah, well, just for, some for the listeners, when you're not doing a custom
No, that's a good point. No, that's a good point. No, that's a good point. Yeah, I like that.
But, yeah.
Base is good for that.
And I would recommend like a big flyer base or something you can have a lot, like a big, it's almost like having a secondary palette that's
so handy because I've got so many spare massive flyer bases hanging around because you get so many of them.
I'm a big advocate of a 160 dinner plate from Games Workshop. They're quite good.
Oh, you can buy like the individual bases, can't you?
Yeah, get yourself a 160.
Plasticard, mate. Just get an A4 sheet of plasticard.
If you really want to be arty, you can punch some holes in it so you can hold it as well. So
that's good.
Yeah. What, like a bowling ball? No. Have you putting your fingers through it?
So you can hold it like a palette. Have you not seen the artist palettes? They've got the holes in them.
Oh, it's because you went up with all of your... You didn't hold it like a palette.
Not like a thumb.
Yeah. You went like...
Yeah, because it sits in your hand. You put your fingers through it and you hold it.
Yeah. No, fair
enough.
Can
we make that? Can we... Kickstarter, coming soon.
Yeah, it's just a base with...
a bit of plastic card with some holes punched in it.
To drill the holes out, are you using a power drill or using a
Barry?
pin
Yeah,
vise?
100% all day long.
Yeah, fair enough. Just thought I'd check.
Yeah. I'm going to use a pin vise with incrementally larger jeweler's drill bits. So I'm going to start at 0.05 millimeters.
Pilot hole.
5 years later.
And then I'm going to go up to like a 1 mil. And then like a 3 mil. And then like a 7 mil. And just keep going until finally I can fit my thumb for it.
Yeah, perfect.
Right, on that note, I think we'll round out the show there. Massive thank you for listening to this week's episode of Paint Perspective. We're going to jump over now to the post-show, which is a benefit for our patrons. So if you want to get access to extended episodes of the podcast completely ad-free in both video and audio format, then check the link in the description to our Patreon. You'll also get access to our wonderful tutorials. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Did you wave to him?
I waved just to see if just to sort of throw him off a little bit.
Still cash that favour in.
I'm going to try and cash it in. I'm going to say to my dad that when I was 12...
and he's having a fight with his box to get it open, pulls out this absolutely crazy